in the office, she's doing everything to be there for her child. And she was proudly saying, yeah, I can manage on 5 hours of sleep. And doing things for other people, which is beautiful, but often at the cost to herself.
Of herself, yep.
Of herself. And it has affected her health.
Self-love till now has been that, you pamper yourself, you take care of yourself, but it's not just that.
No, that's self-care. It is an important aspect, but it is, as you said, it's a pattern. We end up getting depleted and we get exhausted and drained. And then what happens is you take that out on the people you love because your patience wears thin.
नमस्ते, आदाब, केम छो, कसकाय आप, I hope आप सब होंगे मजामा. I'm your host and the girl next door, snehakashyapthakur, and you are listening to the girl next door podcast, जहां हम बातें करते हैं दिल से दिल तक. अगर आपको अभी तक ये pose याद नहीं हुआ है, तो it's time, guys, that you should learn this pose because today we are going to be talking a lot about love, relationship, and a lot of deep dive into those blocks. We are proud to share once again that this is the only podcast that shares stories and celebrate life of everyday South Asian heroes. To all our listeners, thank you for tuning into our channel and welcome again to another dynamic episode of Witnessing Inspiration in the Making. I'm your host once again, and today we are diving into the world of love, relationship, and everything in between. Whether you're struggling in love, finding patterns that keep you stuck, or searching for that soulmate connection, today's guest is here to help. She has been featured on CNN, Cosmopolitan, and many more such platforms. And she's known as a love alchemist for a reason. She transforms past relationships once into the goal of self-love and deep connections. Please join hands in welcoming the incredible Sanaiyah Gurnamal to the show. A pleasure to have you with us today. It's been, we have talked a lot over emails and chats, and I'm so glad that, I was able to have you on the show because love, relationship, especially self-love, and going deep into that part of your own self where you feel that you probably are not capable is a topic that a lot of women would love to hear. And at The Girl Next Door, we are trying to make an impact with that. We are trying to bring those South Asian topics, which we don't often discuss. So I'm really excited to talk about the topics we have lined up with you today. There's so much to unpack when it comes to, women and love. You have been known for your emphasis on self-love as, as the foundation for a successful relationship, right? Let's start with that. Like, can you share how self-love, first of all, what self-love is? Where is that boundary where you become self-obsessed versus self-love? Like, what is that? And then how does self-love impacts our relationships and why it's the most important starting point?
Absolutely. It's such a great question. And let me start by saying this, Sneha. As a South Asian myself, I understand that love and relationships is experienced a little different by us than perhaps some other cultures. There's a lot more, things to talk about and think about, a lot more pressure, a lot more stress, I think. And I think this is the area where a lot of people really struggle in our communities, in our culture. Now, one thing that I think a lot of people might be able to relate to is a lot of us as South Asian are raised to believe that other people are more important. And so whether it's culturally, whether it is in our families, we've been raised to believe that, it's the guest. You always take care of the guest first. You always, look up to the mother-in-law first. You're always, as a woman especially, putting other people first. And as a result, you keep kind of falling down your own list until there's no room for you anymore in your own life. And, just to illustrate my point, I'm going to share a story about something that happened yesterday. So I was talking to a family member, and amazing woman, love her so much. And she is one of those really dedicated moms. She works in the family business. She takes care of the home. They always have visitors and guests, and she really takes a lot of trouble to take care of everybody, make sure everybody has good food. She works so hard in the office. She's doing everything to be there for her child. And she was proudly saying, yeah, I can manage on 5 hours of sleep. And, she, I know, is very tired a lot. And, she's always doing things for other people, which is beautiful, but often at the cost to herself.
Of herself. Yep.
Of herself. And it can affect, it has affected her health. It has affected like probably her own well-being sometimes. And so that's what happens, is because the emphasis is so oriented towards other people, we do our best for other people, but never for ourselves. And so we convince ourselves that, we can manage with less sleep, or we don't need to worry about our diet, or we don't need to think about our exercise, because no, we got to be there for somebody else. And I see this a lot with Asian people, especially Asian women, where there's such an emphasis on taking care and prioritizing everybody else that often you get sacrificed. And sacrifice is a huge thing that happens. So what is self-love? Let's start with that. Self-love is the ability to meet your own needs. It's the ability to take care of yourself, to prioritize yourself, not at the cost of other people, but the recognition that I can be there for myself. I can do what I need to take care of myself in every way and show up for the other people in my life. It's not either or. It is because I'm fully present, I'm fully there for myself, I can really take care of myself. Therefore, I have so much more to give to other people. And one thing I always say is the most important relationship you're ever going to have is the one you have with yourself.
With yourself. Yep.
Absolutely. And that is the relationship that sets the tone, or that teaches everybody else how to love you back. So if you can't love yourself, if you can't prioritize yourself or meet your needs, then nobody else will either. And often, as a giver, you expect other people to recognize your giving. And so then you expect them to, take care of you and give back to you. But, that doesn't always come.
Yeah. And how beautifully you said that the woman was always ready to say that, I'm not tired with 5 hours of sleep. And it's a very common pattern. I mean, we see this so commonly across the board. When you were telling me this, I could visualize 10 or 15 such women which I know in my life who are doing that, including me. Like, there are a lot of times that I would, compromise on my sleep and compromise on my health, but I would make sure that everybody else needs are taken care of.
Yeah.
And my definition of self-love till now has been that, you pamper yourself, you take care of yourself, but it's not just that.
No, that's self-care. It is an important aspect, but it isn't really what self-love is. Because it is, for example, if, there are times in my life that I too have to sacrifice sleep. I have children, I have, husband, I have a family, I have lots of things to take care of. And it is important for me to be there for everyone in my life. Having said that, if I don't sleep enough, I'm the first one to be like, I'm going to go take a nap, and everyone is just going to have to, take care of themselves, because I can't give you anything if I'm depleted, right? And as you said, it's a pattern. We end up getting depleted and we get exhausted and drained. And then what happens is you take that out on the people you love, because your patience wears thin. You can't come up with out-of-the-box solutions.
Yes.
And I can see that in myself. I can see that I really kind of suffer in terms of internally when I don't take care of myself, and then it ends up spilling over into everybody else. But we don't quite see that as the problem. We see, the fact that if I don't do what I should do, if I don't play my role well, then I will be a bad mom, I will be a bad wife, I will be a bad daughter-in-law, I will be a bad daughter, whatever it may be. So we focus so much on other people's perception as opposed to, how we feel inside and how that makes us act or behave around other people. So it's almost like we're taking responsibility and accountability for the wrong things.
Yes. And, I want to understand, Sanaiyah, that how did you end up becoming a relationship reinvention coach here? Like, you're talking about things which you're doing today. Were you like this from day one, or did something change over the past course? And what made you think that, oh my God, there are so many red flags that I need to take care of? And the red flags are not just in the partners, it's also in your own habits that you're building. So what made you, choose this field, and why? And how has your course of journey been or course of life been so far? Like, what was Sanaiyah before she became a relationship coach, and what was Sanaiyah after she became a relationship coach?
Great, thank you. So my story is quite interesting, because I was born in Taiwan and I was raised in Japan. So I pretty much lived abroad for most of my life. I was brought up in a Indian household and very much connected to my culture, my country, always visited, really felt part of that. And with that came a lot of pressure. marriage and relationships always
Yeah.
being the biggest pressure, as in, your goal really is to marry well, to marry into a good family, to be taken care of by your husband. So there was always that kind of programming, you could say, that expectation. But at the same time, my dad was a big believer in education, and he was one of those very progressive people, and really supported me in doing what I wanted to do in my life. So I went to college in Philadelphia. I went to UPenn. I ended up working in New York City. I was in fashion as a fashion buyer. So as you can see, none of this is related to what I do today. But I did get a chance to really enjoy my 20s. I met lots of people, but it was always there in my mind that my dreams were never my own, because there was a certain expectation that I would need to fulfill for me to be a good daughter. And I kept thinking, all right, I'm going to get a good job, I'm going to marry, I'm going to have kids, and that's life. But around my mid-20s, I recognized that love was not easy for me. In fact, relationships were full of heartbreak, a lot of stress. It was just not smooth. And here I am thinking, well, if relationships is the end goal, and yet it's not easy for me to find the partner I want, then clearly, there's a bit of a disconnect here. And so that's kind of where my journey begins, is I went from thinking my life would be a certain way to the circumstances of my life never aligning with that. So what happened is I dated quite a bit, had very many failed relationships. And along that way, I discovered that I was seeking from other people, to fill what was lacking within me. Like I was looking for someone to love me, but there was no one there because my relationships never ended well. And so at one point, I just got really frustrated, and I said, you know what? If nobody out there is going to love me the way I need to, then perhaps this is the time I need to learn to love myself.
Self.
Right? And so that put me on my own path. Around this time, I was already starting to explore things like well-being and healing, and working with different people to help me resolve my past traumas, my inner child issues. So I went on a path of really self-discovery and healing. And as I started to work on myself, as I started to pay attention to myself, to love myself more, I noticed that every relationship in my life started to become easier, started to become smoother, and there was a lot more understanding in my relationship with other people, because there was more understanding of myself. And that is really kind of, I would say, the seed that got planted for me to recognize that it really starts with you. It starts with your relationship with yourself. The better you know yourself, the better you will show up in your relationships with other people. The better you will, react or respond. The better you will interact with people. And, it's almost like the relationship with yourself is the mirror for the relationship you have with all other people. And as I continued on this journey of just working on myself, I became first a healer and a coach, and just started to work with people. But I tend to attract a lot of women right from the beginning, probably because of my own experiences. I would attract a lot of women, and love was always a central theme, so it was always relationships and love. And interestingly enough, I attracted my own partner, my own soulmate, through the work that I did very, very quickly. I met him at a wedding in
So
June.
did you had a failed marriage and then you found a soulmate, or
Just tons of failed relationships, which was
Tons
bad
of-
enough.
Okay.
Tons of failed relationships that didn't work out, things where I had difficulty moving on, all of that kind of stress in my life until,
were your parents pretty open to you having relationships?
I mean, they didn't know about all of them, but the ones they did, the ones they did know about, of course, at that point I was already in my late 20s when they knew, who I was dating and so on. But at the end of the day, what happened is I met my now husband at a wedding over 3 days. And I knew within a week I'm going to marry him. He proposed within a month, and we were married in 5 months. So we had this whole whirlwind, like from the time we met to the time we got married. And that was really at a point where I had come to really, really love myself. And even when I met him, I wasn't like, dying to get married or dying to get into a relationship. For me, it was me first. And that's when I met somebody who just was so compatible and perfect.
And how has it been? Like, whatever you expected before marriage, is it the same after marriage?
And more.
And more? Okay.
And more.
Okay.
The marriage, I've been married for over 13 years now, Sneha, and I would say it is the easiest relationship I've had. So my marriage I've been married for about 13 years now. It's probably the easiest relationship that I've ever had in my life. But it took a lot of internal work to get there. It took a lot of understanding myself before I could understand my partner. And so, I do strongly believe that when you love yourself, you prioritize yourself, you'll attract someone who loves you like you can't even imagine. And it is because I love myself so much that I feel like, I get all this love and understanding and support from my partner. And without that, I don't think I would have received that.
Oh my God, Sanaiyah, I'll tell you one thing that whenever I meet women who take up their passion and then make it work and then take it to next level, I am just in awe. I started this podcast because I wanted to share stories and I wanted to talk to people and bring their life stories and talk about some of these topics which is not commonly talked about within the South Asian community. Like, that's what I wanted to do. We hear a lot of podcasts, like how many of us are actually going and learning from each other's life, because our life have so many stories to share and so many inspirations to give to the world. When I saw your Project Love podcast, I actually felt that whatever you were feeling in your own life and whatever you thought that, this is something I'm learning and I'm going to share it with the world, that made me feel and think so highly of you. Thank you so much for doing that.
Oh, thank you.
It is, I can't tell you how good of a job you're doing with Project Love, and even with your own, relationship and love reinvention coaching, because I know that a lot of people think that, अरे कुछ हुआ ही तो नहीं है, थोड़ी सी, थोड़ा सा झगड़ा ही तो हुआ है, but they forget to see the pattern. Like, if you have been in a 13 or 14 or 20 years of marriage and if you're constantly fighting, there is a pattern. What are you doing about that pattern? And people tend to, restrict themselves when it comes to, going for a marriage counseling, or, a relationship counseling or a love coaching, because they think that कुछ हुआ ही तो नहीं है.
Exactly.
Right? And at least I hope that people will watch the Project Love podcast and they would find some insights through that, and they will get in touch with you to find out more about love and relationship. But this is not the closure of the episode, guys. I'm just a little emotional right now after hearing all of this, that how we women are trying to make a difference bit by bit with whatever we can do to make world this a better place. And thank you so much once again, Sanaiyah, for doing this. My first question here is, like, you talked about 13 years of marriage and you said that, I first started loving myself, and I thought that now that I know myself and I love myself, I'm not gonna rush into marriage. I'm gonna find my partner and then I'm gonna, get married. Or even if you were not married, you were in a live-in relationship or in a long-term open partnership, even in that case, right? The one thing which stood out to me was that you first found yourself. And then with that mindset, when you went into a relationship, the expectation in the relationship would have been totally different. Before I came on this recording, right, I was scrolling my Instagram and there was one reel which I saw, and in that a girl is asking, there are a lot of boys who are ready to make me their girlfriend. But I have not met a single boy who is ready to marry me. Now, love is a term we use very often, and it's also, sometimes I feel it's very overrated. But let's start with the concept of love, particularly for women. We all grow up with that societal expectation and narrative about love, that, there will be a Prince Charming, he will come, he will kiss you, he'll wake you up, and he'll be the perfect partner, right? But these societal pressures shape our beliefs and love for women, in us women, right? How can we break free from them? How can we be out of that zone? That, dude, there is no Prince Charming that is going to come and woo you. In reality, things are way different.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this has to do with meeting your needs, Sneha. We always think the Prince Charming is going to fix my life. The Prince Charming is going to make everything okay for me, right?
Yeah.
But that is actually our responsibility. And coming into a relationship or a marriage, I think having that attitude that it's not my partner's job to make me happy. It's not my partner's job to make me feel good about myself. It's not my partner's job to say the things I need to hear. If he does, that is wonderful. And receive it with grace and receive it with gratitude. But it's really your job to do those things for yourself. And if you look at most relationships, I think this would probably be the point at which there's a lot of conflict, is you didn't do this for me, or you did this for me and that's not what I wanted, or there's a lot of this disconnect over expectations, obligations, disappointment, frustration. And it really comes from, constantly seeking from others what you need to learn to give to yourself. And to
Yeah.
me, that is the recipe of a very successful relationship. And some people might say, oh, but then if you're giving everything to yourself, why do you need a partner? What's a partner there for? Okay. And the thing is, the partner is there for you to actually express yourself, enjoy yourself, because you don't know who you are until you experience yourself through other people and with other people.
So you're saying that we tend to put a lot of obligation or a lot of expectation on the partner when we marry somebody or when we are in a relationship, that now it's that person's responsibility to make me happy.
Correct.
Got
And
it.
that is where, the whole story spirals downward from there when we put the happiness, the expectation of happiness on them.
Yes. Yes.
We need to come into the relationship happy.
Why do we do that?
Why do we do that? Because at the end of the day, this is something that has been ingrained in us, that we do things for other people and then they're supposed to do something back for us, right? Like that's supposed to give us happiness and joy. But most of the time we keep giving so much.
Yes, this is such a genuine feeling. Like every time you do 10 things for somebody, and then once you would expect that I have done 10 things for that person, when is that person going to give me that one thing back? Oh my God, yes.
Right? And it's a very, very much so that you are disappointed because they don't always give it back, or they don't give it back in the way you expect it, right?
And why do we expect? Like why is this feeling so innate? Like why, as a person, I have this expectation? Why can I not break free from this expectation that I have to do it, but I don't have to expect anything in return?
Because you haven't learned to give it to yourself. So if you break free from it, you're left kind of like, as if you're untethered. Like, who's going to take care of me now? Who's going to make me happy? If the other person doesn't do it, who's going to do it for me? And so we've never quite broken out of that idea that somebody has to take care of me. From the time we were children, we never really learned to take responsibility or accountability for our own lives. And so we put it onto other people. And our culture also kind of, it does encourage that, because that's what keeps family systems together, is the idea that, you're going to do things for other people and they're going to do it for you. And then, a lot of joint families work on this. But as you know, that also leads to a lot of different problems and misunderstandings and conflicts. And I know this because I work with so many people, and it's always about what the other person did or did not do.
But I've always seen men not having this kind of problem. Like men would, a lot of time you would find that men would do something and then they would forget. This is a major problem with women.
Absolutely. And I think that's because the pressure on women to be the one who does everything for other people, from taking care of your child to your home. Like, there's a lot of expectations on women, and therefore, it bears on women a lot more. And I do see that in a lot of relationships where the women just take on way too much. And especially in relationships, there's not enough of teamwork or partnership in a lot of South Asian relationships, simply because culturally men are not also brought up to feel that it is their role to take care in the home, or to be as involved as a woman might be. Of course, it's changing, and there's a lot of relationships where that shift has happened, but not enough. Not enough.
It's not just limited to the marriage and partnership which we see. We also see this pattern in female friendships. Mm-hmm. Right? Like where you become friends and then you start expecting from your friend. The closer the friend is, the more expectations you have.
Yes.
The more acquaintance kind of friendship you have, the less expectation you have. Shouldn't it be the other way around? Or maybe, it should not be there at all?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I say expectations are frustrations. Right? So absolutely. You're going to have an expectation. You're likely to get disappointed. So why have it at all? Instead, can we just love people and accept them for who they are? Can we just allow them to be who they are without having to put any judgment on that, without having to expect anything of that? Right? Can we do that? But then first, we have to do that for ourselves. We have to be able to do that for ourselves, to learn to do that with other people.
So I'm going to share my personal story where I think that I self-criticize myself a lot. Like a lot. I'm that kind of a person who's perfectionist and who takes care of even the small little thing. And because of that, I sometimes be very hard on myself. And I also feel that a lot of times I'm hard on others.
Correct.
Right? Because I'm hard on myself. So I'm just reflecting that same thing along the way. And sometimes, and this is my thinking, like sometimes I feel that this chokes people around me.
Yeah.
That they feel that, they're under too much pressure of making me happy, which I don't want from them. I'm just this way. And now I'm going to be 35 and 34 years of that living. How do you change that in 1 second? Tell me about that.
Awareness, Sneha, awareness. So you start with first, try loving yourself instead of being so critical, right? So you can reframe. So for example, give me a situation where you are normally hard on yourself or critical of yourself.
Most of my work and work thing, like anything which I'm doing, I will try to make it as perfect as possible. I'm into product management, so I have this, I design and develop products. So when I'm, there is a concept of MVP, minimum viable product.
Correct.
That does not exist in my life. There is no minimum viable product. That has to be a full-fledged product that I need to build. But most of the time I'm critical on my work. Like I have to be great at it. I think how do I look? And how do I present myself? Like I try to go a little extra mile, not always, but most of the time. So yeah.
Okay, so can you try being more appreciative of yourself? Like, you know what? I've done so well on this. I put so much time into it. Maybe it's not exactly where I needed to be, but I gave it my all. I did the best that I could. Can you be more loving to yourself? Can you be more, gentle with yourself?
How do you do that?
You change the conversation in your head.
But the first conversation, the first thought that comes in your mind is, oh my God, this is missing.
And then
rather than you seeing that, you have done that 90% thing, which is working, you focus on that 10% thing, this is missing. I don't know, Sanaiyah, if you've seen this, there was an article which was recently shared and that talked about like, there was a designer who went and he was doing a survey. He designed a pool. And in the pool, he made the pool with blue bricks. There was one spot where he left the brick. The pool was pristine, clear, very nice, and the pool was. I think you might have heard of it. And he opened the pool for people to come and look at it. It was very artistic, very. It had a lot of creativity in it. But when people came and when they left their feedback, most of the people left the feedback. Oh, there was one brick missing. So what do you have to like? I know that there are tons of people who only see what is missing.
Yeah.
And when you have been doing this like 30 years, 40 years of your life, how do you start seeing it the other way around in just like it needs to be a habit of, again, like 30, 35 years?
Well, not necessarily a habit of 30, 35 years, but you can start from now just being aware that that's what I do. And it leads me to then be critical of other people, which then leads them to feel pressured, which then affects my relationships in a negative way. Now, I don't want that anymore. So what do I need to change? Okay, let's start with myself. Let me appreciate the fact that the entire pool is pristine and beautiful. And let me be a little, give myself grace that one brick is missing. It's okay. Let it go. Focus on what is great about what you've done and appreciate that and celebrate that. And then you do that again, and you do that again, and you do that again. And then that kind of inner critic voice starts to get quieter and quieter and quieter. Because the inner critic keeps talking because you let it run its mouth. You just let it go, you keep going, you allow it to kind of keep speaking and you listen. But if you essentially overrule it, you start reframing what you do in your own mind. Like, actually, I did a really good job. Actually, what I did over here is pretty incredible. Like, I already went way above and beyond, okay? And I'm going to give myself that recognition. So it's starting with just being very kind and loving and compassionate to yourself. And as you build that relationship with yourself, it'll be easier to be that way with other people. Okay? It's much harder actually to do it the other way around, which is try to be gentle and kind to other people, but still knock yourself down. That's that actually doesn't work. So you really have to learn to practice that with yourself in order to then, have that kind of ripple out of you with your relationships with others. But it really starts with recognizing, who do I want to be? Do I want to be this person who's so critical of myself all the time? Like, I've been disapproving of myself all my life, but it's never really worked. Maybe I should try approving of myself for a change.
Do you think there is something to do with the, with the trauma and the baggage you're carrying from your childhood or, early days where you were seeking approval? Because when we are kids, we seek our parents' approval. We seek our elder siblings' approval. We seek our society approval. Okay, who is saying that I'm a good student? Okay, who is saying that I am an all-rounder? Okay, what does my parents think of, we 7 siblings, or we are 2 siblings. How many? What do my parents think of my brother and me?
And that's actually where it does originate, Sneha. So, for example, if you were raised where one child was compared to the other, okay, then you would learn that I would always have to be better. So there's going to be immense pressure on being better. If you were taught that, if you did things perfectly, you would be loved. and the love would come in the form of praise or recognition, or maybe you got a candy, or maybe you got something. So you were taught that way, that I must be perfect, and that would give me love in whatever form you would get it from your parents. And normally, whenever I have a client, because this is the work I do with people, is I actually go back and figure out where it started, and I work with them on the root causes, so it becomes easier for them to change their behavior in the present. But what I find is, if you are very critical of yourself, chances are one of your parents or your primary caregiver was critical of you
Themselves.
or themselves. And so it was learned behavior, or it's the way you were taught. And so usually there's a disciplinarian parent who used to be kind of do it this way, or like very...
Or look at that kid,
Yeah.
Mr. Sharma's kid is doing way better than you are doing.
Yes.
Right. And in the childhood, you don't realize that it's impacting you, but slowly that becomes a habit, that you start comparing. Today you are comparing yourself with Mr. Sharma's kid, and tomorrow you're going to compare it with Rohit and Rahul and Sanaiyah in the office, and then day after tomorrow you'll start comparing it with your relatives, and so on. Right?
It never ends. And it's your father's voice in your head, and then it becomes your voice in your head. And you don't even know at which point in my life did it stop being about my parent and it became my own behavior.
Yes.
So, it's learning to break these patterns. Some of these patterns are things, again, we got from childhood. Some of them are from past relationships, where certain things happen, and then that became sort of a story that we repeated over and over again.
Yeah. Somebody's boyfriend saying that you are, hey, you don't dress up this way. Look at so and so. She dresses up so well, and then you start mimicking and being that person. Now that is stuck in your head, that now you have to look good, because if you don't look good, your boyfriend left you, and maybe your man will leave you, and maybe your friends will not be with you. This. So I'm gonna switch gears here, and I'm gonna come to another question. Yeah.
Yes, but before you do that, Sneha, I want to show you something I think that'll be really helpful. So in that situation, you've got a boyfriend who says, look at that person, she dresses so well. Now your first thought is, I have to dress well or I'm going to lose my boyfriend, right? Now, when you don't love yourself, you will change yourself to be exactly like the other person.
Yep.
If you love yourself, you'll say, that's interesting. Okay. I'm getting this experience that's telling me maybe I need to focus on how I present myself. And maybe I'm going to go out there and I am going to read some fashion magazines, or I'm going to go look at Pinterest, and I'm going to work on myself a little bit more, but not because I don't feel good enough or I'm comparing myself to someone else, but because something is showing up in my life that's telling me maybe this is an area of improvement for me. This is something that I could strive to do better on. And hey, I would like that too. So I'm going to focus on that. Not because it's a criticism of me, not because I'm not already good. I'm already perfect as I am, but you know what? Maybe I could learn to dress a little better.
Yes, and that is why probably I would hope that some of our listeners are those teen girls and teen boys who listen to this conversation, and because in the teens, who is going to tell you this? Everybody around you is doing that, so you're easily influenced by that. So I really hope that people, whatever you said right now, people hear it and they imbibe it in their own behavior. That even in teens, when you don't have that much of exposure of the world, don't do this because your boyfriend is telling you that you should look good.
Yeah. True.
So I was saying that I'm going to switch gears here. A lot of time, this entire trauma, childhood baggage, and being stuck in a relationship where you're trying to change things leads to people-pleasing behavior.
Yes.
Like you tend to become people-pleasing behavior. And a recent research showed that more than men, women are people pleasers. Because they have to please everybody. I'm so sorry. This is so. iPhone is saying yes, it's correct. Women are people pleasers. So we women often put, and this again goes back to our first discussion or first pointer, that was self-love. We don't self-love ourselves because we are people pleaser. We want to do things according to our mother, father, mother-in-law, father-in-law, husband, kids, and we become those things. I recently asked somebody, who are you? And she said, I'm a mother, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister. And she did not say who she is. So we become that people pleaser. And we tend to keep having that poison for the longest period of our time. Yeah. How do you recognize first that you are becoming a people pleaser? And how can you break that cycle?
Great question. So a people pleaser believes that the only way to be loved is to make other people happy. So your happiness, your sense of worth comes from how other people respond to you. This is the kind of person who would change themselves to fit what someone else wants. They're constantly seeking approval.
Why do they become like that?
And this is because there's no sense of self-worth, no self-esteem. Okay. And so you either got the message as a child that you're not important. Okay. And the emphasis again was everybody else. That could be one reason. It could be being overly criticized as a child. Maybe your parents were particularly difficult on you, or they made you feel that, again, comparison, other person's child is better than you. Okay. It could be other experiences, even in school, bullying that could have taken a toll on your self-esteem. It could have been relationships where you did so much for a person and then they left you anyway. Okay.
Yeah.
So rejection, abandonment, not feeling good enough. These are kind of the key feelings that a person grows up with that makes them a people pleaser. And so what they do is they keep trying to please other people to fill that lack within them, that they're not good enough. So they keep doing something for somebody else just to feel better. But then what happens is they lose themselves along the way, right? Along the way, they forget that who they are. And they become the mother, the father, not the mother, the father. I mean, they become the mother, they become the wife, they become, as you said, all those roles without really knowing who they are. Okay? Now, what happens is when you're a people pleaser, is people take you for granted.
Yes.
They step on you like a doormat. They think you'll always be there to do things. And what ends up happening is you lose respect. Not only your own self-respect, but people don't respect you because there's no value for you. You're always there. You're always doing things for other people. You're a yes person to everything. Okay? There's no boundaries. There's no sense of like worth. And so people respond to that and they end up really taking you for granted. And that leaves a people pleaser with feelings of, again, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. So you're right back to where you started, which is, constantly seeking that approval, the validation from other people. Now, how do you stop that? You stop that by focusing on yourself, by making yourself the priority. What do I want? What's important to me? Okay? You can still do things for other people, but first comes you. And you have to learn to have that conversation with yourself before you go out and try to please someone else. What do I really want in this situation? Like if I have a client who's a people pleaser, I really obviously go back to those childhood issues where they didn't get to develop any self-worth. They didn't get to develop any sense of, them being important. And probably they weren't important when they were a child. They didn't feel important. So now what are the things you can do to make yourself important today? How can you show love? Now there's this idea, I'm sure you're familiar, Sneha, with love languages. We all have a way we express love and we receive love. So for me, as a child, my parents weren't into gifts. Like they weren't the type of parents who it's your birthday and you would get lots of gifts. They always believed you don't want to get too much because then you won't appreciate or value it. So they were that. But my parents were also the kind of people who, they would buy things for me all the time, but it wasn't a gift. So I grew up being the type of person who never felt like I enjoyed opening gifts and had the thrill of gifts unless it was my birthday party, right? And so I became the kind of person where I perceive love and receive love through gifts. I crave it.
Oh, okay.
Because I didn't get it as a child.
Yes.
So for me to get a gift, I feel like a little girl who didn't have that excitement.
Yeah.
And so I get really happy. And, I've attracted a partner. My husband is someone who loves giving gifts. So it's perfect. We're very compatible. He's always, like any birthday, any anniversary, any special occasion, Mother's Day. He's just one of those people who's very thoughtful and he's always buying gifts for me. And that gift could be like I'm working and he comes and picks up a coffee and drops it off to me. It could be something as tiny as that. But that brings me so much joy and it makes me feel loved. Now, I know that about myself. And if I didn't have a partner, I need to do that for myself. So
but when he doesn't do that, does that impact you?
No, because I know how to give it to myself. But for other people, yes, they can feel disappointed. Yeah. So knowing your own love language, how you receive love and how you give love is very important. Okay? And I actually have a quiz, so I'm happy to share that with your listeners to help them discover their love language. And we can talk about that later. But one of the things is, if you know that's how you receive love, then buy yourself gifts. So every time, so when I was single, if I did something pretty amazing, like I taught a course and it took a lot of, preparation from me, or I did something great at work, I would go out and buy myself a gift. So you give yourself that love that you're seeking from others. For some people, it's quality time. Quality time is your love language. So how can you spend quality time with yourself?
That's me.
You need to take a bubble bath and put on some candles, and you need to just have quiet time where, there's no distractions, no one's disturbing you, right? Or is your love language words of affirmation? You like to be told. you need to hear it. So if that's the case, write yourself a letter or journal to yourself. Okay? So how you receive love, and you can see it in what makes you feel good when other people express that to you, right? And that can also tell you a little bit about your love language, but give it to yourself.
What
Don't
if
wait
if
for
it is a
other people.
mixture of all these things?
Well, then do all these things for yourself, right? There's no limit to how much you can love yourself. Maybe it is a little bit of self-care and pampering. Maybe it is going and buying yourself a gift or doing something nice for yourself. Maybe it is getting someone to clean your house because you're just really tired today. Whatever it takes to make yourself feel supported and loved, instead of focusing on somebody else to give that to you. So the people pleaser in particular needs to learn that love can come from me, not just from other people. And to do those acts of love, whether it's a small act of love or it's a consistent act of love, but being able to kind of commit to yourself and it being entirely about you and your relationship with yourself, and you don't need it from other people. So a people pleaser needs to learn that. But, I've worked with a lot of people pleasers, and I've noticed that this is not something that is an overnight shift. With people pleasing, you have to consistently give yourself that love and attention. You have to earn your trust.
Yeah.
That I can do this for myself. And you have to constantly work on that in terms of, committing and recommitting to yourself.
Got it. So before I deep dive into the patterns and blocks that keep people stuck in unhealthy relationships, be it with your partners or your friends, and I would love it if you can, dive deep into both the partner side of it and also, surrounding side of it, like your friends, your other relationships. It's very important so that you are able to balance both of those. But before we dive into that, I have some myths I want you to burst, and let's get started. The first one is true love means never having to apologize.
Ooh, absolutely not. And in fact, apology is very, very important. It actually creates a doorway for people to connect with each other. When you ask for forgiveness or you express an apology to someone, you're showing vulnerability. And vulnerability creates intimacy. It builds trust. So it allows you to actually deepen the relationship and connection with someone. And the next time they're more likely to trust you. When you have the ability to own up to something you've done to hurt someone, whether that's in a relationship or that's in a friendship.
Got it. A good relationship is effortless.
Ooh, I would say two things. A good relationship is effortless, Sneha, but it takes work. It takes work to make something effortless.
Yep.
What I mean by that is it takes attention, it takes prioritizing, it takes commitment, it takes those things that you need to do to take care of a relationship. Again, whether that's with your partner, with a parent, with a loved one, with a friend. But it should feel effortless. It should not feel forced. It should not feel like, oh my God, this is so difficult. So it takes work, but it doesn't take hard work.
It takes effort, but not hard effort or not forced effort, is what you're saying.
Yes. It should come naturally. It should come organically.
Yeah. Your partner should complete you.
Your partner should definitely not complete you. The only person who can complete you is yourself.
Yeah.
Okay? But your partner allows you to be who you are.
Yeah.
Your partner supports you and loves you and, is your bedrock. That's important. But you need to complete yourself. That's your job. Not theirs.
Yes. And I would like to add one thing to this. I recently was hearing Adam Grant, I'm a huge fan of Adam Grant. He was telling that if there are two people in a relationship, if they are poles apart and if they are strong and they are opinionated and they have disagreements and they agree to disagree, they always go ahead and agree to disagree, not fight. Like you go and agree to disagree. It actually creates a very healthy environment for your kids to have that strong personality. They'll automatically understand that disagreements are okay. You can have disagreements. There is no need to fight when you have disagreements. So thank you for sharing that your partner should not complete you. They should basically complement you in ways where there are certain things you can learn from them and there are certain things they can learn from you.
Absolutely. And they balance you. In many cases, you'll find somebody who balances you. And I also want to add one more thing about the situation where if you have got two strong people and they can disagree, that shows respect. You're creating an atmosphere and household of respect where everyone is respected and valued.
Yep. Love will fix everything.
I do believe love is one of the most powerful forces and energy in the world. I think that love it's not enough. There must be some core values between two people for that relationship to survive. You can love someone and still hurt them repeatedly. And so sometimes you need these other core values to make a relationship healthy. Okay, like respect. Respect is very important. Commitment is important. Loyalty is important. Those kind of things are also important. Of course, love is the priority, but there are other things that really matter too.
Being in relationship means you'll have to be cozy all the time. There is no place for space.
Absolutely not. In fact, it is very healthy in a relationship to have your own identity and to have your own space. I can share how it is with my partners. Both of us, we're busy in our lives. We have our own identity, our own goals, things that really matter to us. And yet we come together and we share that with each other. So we have kind of our own space and we have our shared space. And that shared space allows for a lot of creativity, a lot of support, a lot of balance, complementing each other, as you said. But it's really important to have your own identity, your own me time and your own space.
Last one. Happy couples do not need therapy.
That might be the case, that if you are a couple that know how to fight, that know how to, handle conflict in a healthy way, you may not need therapy. Having said that, I do believe that it takes two very self-aware people, to take responsibility and accountability for their own selves, to show up, to bring their best into a relationship. So there are cases, many cases where happy couples really don't need therapy. But if you have a conflict and you have difficulty dealing with that, then I highly recommend you work with someone who can help you unpack and detangle whatever that situation might be.
Thank you so much, Sanaiyah, for this. Now I'm going into a little bit of deeper dive section, which is the pattern and blocks thing, right? Mm-hmm. We as women, and even men, right? We love to stay stuck in those unhealthy relationships. We don't even recognize that we are in an unhealthy relationship, or even from finding the love which we deserve. What are some common relationship patterns that women tend to fall into? And how can they recognize those and break those?
Okay. So I've worked with over 5,000 women, Sneha, in the last 15 years. And over all this time, I've discovered that there are really 5 major hidden patterns that I've seen in my work. And whether you are single and in relationships where you're dating, or you're married, or you're in other kinds of configurations, these love patterns show up either as conflict in your relationship or as, relationships that don't work out. And then you're dating over and over again. But it's the same pattern that ends up showing up. So the first one is the commitment phobe. So this is someone where you keep attracting these unavailable partners. And you think that, they're the ones who can't commit. They have a problem. But actually, you're the one with the commitment issue, because you keep attracting men or partners who have a commitment issue. So you're the common denominator. So what happens with someone who's a commitment phobe is you actually keep a distance in the relationship, even though you want a relationship. And the fear is that I'm going to get hurt, I'm going to get abandoned, I'm going to get rejected. And so you kind of keep a distance with people. You never let yourself get too close. And you almost push people away when it gets too close. And so this kind of fear of commitment, which most people aren't even aware that they have, okay, is one of the patterns that I see. This comes from when you have a childhood where your parents didn't have a good relationship, or you've been hurt repeatedly in other relationships. So you could have a commitment issue. The second one is the people pleaser. We talked a lot about a people pleaser. It's someone who never got to build their own self-esteem or self-worth. They don't feel good enough. And so they think they should make other people happy. And then you get taken advantage of. Your partners take you for granted. You lose yourself. Okay? And this also often leads to partners who cheat on you. Okay? Because they take you for granted, they cheat on you. Right? Third one is the runaway bride. This is someone who's just had really painful relationships. There's a lot of trauma when it comes to love. So you believe love is hard, it's painful, it's risky, and you're constantly running away from it. And with a runaway bride, you often sabotage your relationships. A relationship could be going really well, and then you sabotage it. Okay, you do something to just completely end the relationship or destroy it. So a lot of self-destructive behavior. The goal for, or the motivation for a runaway bride is you're trying to protect yourself from being hurt by love. Okay. It's similar to commitment phobe, but the commitment phobe is someone who's just afraid of commitment. The runaway bride is afraid of love. Okay, cannot be intimate, cannot be vulnerable, always on guard. And so running away. Then you've got the caretaker. The caretaker is someone who thinks other people's happiness is their responsibility.
It's same as people pleaser, no?
Not really. The caretaker, it's about responsibility, not self-worth. Okay, so a caretaker could be someone who can't give themselves completely to their partner because they have to take care of their parents. Okay, or they feel they have too many responsibilities in their life that they can't focus on their love life. And what happens with a caretaker personality is when you grew up, you probably had to take care of your siblings, or you had to take care of your mom who maybe was going through some things. Like you were always taking care of someone as a child that you never learned to take care of yourself. Okay, so for you, love is sacrifice. And then you always attract a partner who you need to take care of. And the problem with that is once your partner doesn't need you anymore, he leaves. So he comes to you because he wants to be taken care of, right? But when he doesn't need you anymore, you're like cast away. So that's a caretaker personality. All right. And finally, we've got the one that's really stuck in the past, or I like to say stuck in reverse. You're always holding on to the ex. You have the regrets, the one that got away, or why did I do this? I ruined this relationship. It's my fault. So you're always looking back and you can't move forward. And any new potential partner, you're comparing it to your old relationship or to the one that you think got away. So you're never able to really give new love a chance. And these are things that I see showing up in relationships, whether it's a single person or someone who's already in a relationship. In both cases, they're struggling with love. These patterns repeat. They show up from past experiences. And the work I do is really helping people to release these patterns, to get the awareness, understanding, release it, do healing in the childhood, wherever it originated, and help them to change these patterns into something healthier.
So you talked about these 5 patterns. Now, this is something when you are getting into a relationship. Now you have already you are already in a relationship, or say you are already in a marriage where you have where you are a caretaker personality, or a commitment for personality, or a runaway bride kind of person. One of these, right? Now what? Now you are stuck with the other person who is of this kind, and when is it too much to say that, okay, no, I'm not gonna be in this relationship or in this marriage for long, I'm gonna break it here. Like I did see again a reel where somebody was saying that when it is when should you cut yourself from friends or people who are torturing you mentally, and the answer was, when do you stop drinking poison? Like once you start drinking poison, when do you say that it is the right time to stop drinking poison? It's at the very beginning, right? So same question.
That's a good question, Sneha, but I want to flip it around, because in my experience, and this is like a core value I really hold, is that the problem is never other people, right? The problem is always what's going on with you. Okay. So when we talk about a pattern, it's your pattern. You keep attracting this kind of a person, or you're attracting this kind of relationship in your marriage or in your whatever you're in, right? So it's you. Now, if you're a runaway bride, right, and you keep sabotaging a relationship, you're in a relationship with someone, maybe you're even married, but you keep sabotaging it. You keep creating fights over no reason. You keep, you're just afraid that your partner is going to hurt you. You don't want to be vulnerable with them. You don't want to, ever show them that you are weak. Right? This is still the same pattern, but it's showing up in your relationship. You have to learn to actually release this fear of love. You have to
but for example, say Sanaiyah, a lot of time what you see is that in marriage, most of the time I've seen South Asian couples fight over their families. Your family versus my family, and it has a component of all these 5 patterns which you talked about. This fight over your families, where one person is caregiver to their families, or maybe they have this problem of commitment to providing for the other partner's family. So it is a mix of all of this.
Agreed. And I took a client like this. I was working with a woman. She was having very similar problems as you described, right? And so it was, my mother-in-law is like this, and my husband is doing this, and all these things were happening. But the work I did with her was actually, let's go back to your childhood. Let's figure out where your pattern has originated, that these are the people you're attracting, or these are the situations you're attracting. And I actually never tell a person that go break the marriage, or go, say it's enough is enough. I never tell people to work on the outside. I tell them to do the work, or I work with them on the inside. And honestly, this woman I worked with, it was such an amazing transformation, because as we did the healing on her past childhood, her experiences, build up her self-worth, her self-esteem, we did a lot of forgiveness, letting go, all of these things that we did, and her relationship with her husband changed, relationship with the family members changed, she was more at peace with herself. All the things that were creating conflict in her life basically disappeared. because
Yeah.
she didn't work on herself. So
Yeah.
other people aren't the problem. It's not really about at which point do I walk away from the marriage. I mean, of course, if you're in a marriage that's very toxic and there's abuse and those kind of situations, I'm not talking to those, because you always have to prioritize your safety and well-being. So if you're in a situation that is, unhealthy for you, then I do definitely, I would tell you to make sure you take the steps to keep yourself safe. But in a situation where there's just conflict in a relationship, I really advise people, work with them to clear what are the patterns that are originating from you that's creating this. Because it's never them, it's you. And if you look back at your life experiences, you'll notice that those same things that are happening now have happened before. They've happened in friendships, they've happened in other relationships, they've happened in your life. So therefore, this is your pattern, which means it's your story to change.
Yep.
Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And that's why, and this is where it brings me to my next question, which is, many people struggle with being stuck in the past, whether it's an unresolved trauma from their past relationship or their, childhood or emotional wounds. You have talked about how past influences our present relationships, right? And so I want to understand two things here. My first question is, how can someone identify those emotional blocks and begin the healing process? The second question is, what is forgiveness? What is the role of forgiveness here? And both for ourselves and others, and how does it play in moving forward in love? So first is emotional block, second is forgiveness and moving forward in love.
Sure, absolutely. So the first thing to do is, the first way or the first step in breaking free is recognizing what's wrong. Okay. So again, going back to what are the things that repeat in my life? What are the kinds of experiences I seem to have over and over again? What are the emotions that I feel repeatedly in my life, whether it's at work, in my relationships? These are the problem areas that need attention. Okay. Now, the second question you asked is about what is forgiveness. Now, forgiveness is letting go, okay, to the point that you don't even remember it anymore. So a lot of people tell me, I've forgiven Sanaiyah, I've actually forgiven this person, but you know what? This is what they did to me, and they hurt me, and they did this wrong, and blah, blah. And that's not forgiveness, because if you can remember it, and you have all those emotions in charge, you haven't forgiven the person. If there's judgment of the person, that's not true forgiveness. Forgiveness is, they did what they did because they didn't know better, or that was the best they could do at that time. Or maybe they were raised that way themselves.
Oh my God, I really want to understand, how can you do that? Forgiveness is hard.
Forgiveness is as hard as you make it, Sneha. It's as hard as you make it. But at the end of the day, the only person you're hurting when you don't forgive is yourself.
Someone treated you like a doormat. Someone made you feel miserable of yourself. Someone, and you let them do that. I agree that you were the one.
I was just going to say, exactly. They may have treated you like a doormat. They may have made you feel a certain way, but it's your choice to feel that way or to become the doormat. You always have a choice, right, Sneha? You could walk away. You could say no. Okay, you could discard what they say. Like someone can say, hey, Sneha, you are a horrible person. Now, it's your choice to say, am I a horrible person? Or to say, you know what, I'm not a horrible person. I'm a great person.
But as long as the person is telling you, you can still do that. But if the person is going and telling you and then, talking about this in the entire world and then you come back, remember that artist thing which I was telling you? If 90 people came back and said that, you have that brick missing, and even though the artist left that brick missing because of a creative choice he or she had made, because of those 90 people feedback, probably that artist is going to fix that brick. So
unless that artist has very high self-esteem, and he's going to say, I don't really care. This is the work that I did. This is what I wanted to show the world. So again, it depends on your own self-worth and self-esteem. And I think it's a lot more productive to focus on building that up than trying to quiet all those 99 people who are saying something that you disagree with, right? You have the power to actually work on yourself, but not other people. You can't change them. But I will tell you this.
Now you're left alone. So the problem I'm taking you to is the problem which I have seen with a lot of South Asian women, which is, the partner, I broke up with somebody, and now that the other partner has gone and talked all rubbish about me with all my friends because we had common mutual friends, or a friendship I broke up with and that friend has gone ahead and talked about all rubbish thing about me, which we talked in, which was between all of us. And now those 10 people who are our mutual friends are going to judge me. Because of that, now I cannot go out and hang around with those people. I cannot go out and be myself because I'm scared. And now I feel lonely.
Couple of things, right, Sneha? At the end of the day,
Am I making sense? Like,
I get it. I totally get it. And this might be also very hard for people to grasp that it's as easy as this. But here's how it works, right? If those people, your friends, believe what one partner says and, completely judge you because of what your ex said about you, right? Those probably aren't good friends. At the end of the day, these are people who are so quick to believe the worst of you. Either they don't know you well enough or they weren't really good friends to believe with, which means they're not really worth your time or energy. You're probably better off finding better friends who are loyal, friends who will actually believe in the best of you or who know you and say, you know what, I know her, she's not like that. Okay? Or having friends that are a little bit more self-aware and they'll be like, you know what, this is between you two. We don't want to hear it. You know what I mean? You want better people. And if you do encounter these kind of people who are going to judge you, it's a great, sign to say, hey, maybe I need to find better people to hang out with, because you don't need to be around those people. You can find people who don't think that way. Okay. And there are a ton of people who are a lot more self-aware out there. Go seek them out as you become more self-aware, right?
Yep.
Because ultimately, if you're surrounding yourself with people who judge you and who, are quick to point fingers, right? Then that's who you are as well.
yes. Yes.
Right? But if you change yourself, you yourself will not like to be around those kind of people. You'll find people who are perhaps, I would say, much more, they're better friends.
Yeah.
They're better people to be around. They'll uplift you rather than knock you down.
Yeah. And you were saying about forgiveness.
Okay, and about forgiveness, the person you hurt the most when you don't forgive is yourself, because you're holding on to all that negative energy, all the anger, the hatred, whatever it may be, and it's sitting in you, even though it's towards someone else. So the only person who's getting affected by what they did is you, because every time you think about how much they hurt you, you feel horrible, you are dropping your energy, you are actually feeling bad about yourself. So it's not helping anyone, okay? And that person
Are you saying that you forgive? Are you saying that you forgive and then, you become friends with that person, or you are just saying that forgive and move on? You don't have to be best
friends.
friends.
Move on, because it's information. Information tells me that this person can be hurtful. This person doesn't respect me. So therefore, I'll forgive them and I'll let them go. But I don't need to be friends with them. I don't need to hang out with them. It actually tells me this is not the type of person I want to spend my time with. It helps me make better choices about the kind of people I want to be with.
Got it.
And this is very important if you're single and dating, because if somebody you dated hurt you, do the forgiveness and say, hey, now that teaches me what to avoid in a relationship, what to avoid when I'm dating someone. If someone shows these kind of signs, now I am better, equipped to make the right choice for myself, because I know what I don't want. And so take it as information.
And so tell me, what if the person who has hurt you, and or the past relationship, somebody hurt you, and they come back and ask forgiveness, you forgive them, and then they do same thing again, you again forgive them, they do same thing again. Where do you put that stop button?
So they're teaching you, by the way, this person who keeps doing it again and again, they're teaching you how to have boundaries. Okay, and until you put down your own boundaries, they'll keep coming back and doing that to you. So what are boundaries? Boundaries are saying, no, you can't do that to me. No, this is not okay. Okay, or walking away. That's a boundary. So when people keep coming and doing the same thing to hurt you, it's not on them, it's on you, because you are allowing them to do it over and over and over again. Okay, forgiving someone doesn't mean you let them hurt you over and over again, right? Forgiveness is something that empowers you. It shouldn't disempower you.
Yep. And thank you so much for sharing so much on the forgiveness front. I'm pretty sure that a lot of women I know, they're going to love this segment. Last question from the segment is, like we hear a lot about manifestation today and manifesting love or finding your soulmate. What's the prime difference between actively dating and looking for partner versus, finding your soulmate? Is there a different mindset or approach you move forward with? Because you shared your own story. You found your soulmate in 3 days and then you got married. So how does that work?
So I would capture it in a statement, which is you should attract love, not chase it. You should attract love, not chase it. So attracting love is attracting your soulmate. Chasing love is where you're going out there and trying to find that person, but all you find are your own patterns showing up over and over again in these unhealthy relationships that you attract, that you find yourself in. So what does it mean to find your soulmate? It means that you do go out there, you date, you may, meet different people, you can be set up, all those different things. It's as much as, it's the same thing as someone who, wants to find a partner. But when you come from a place of attracting a partner, Sneha, it feels very effortless and easy. It's not about getting someone to like you. It's about knowing I am amazing, and the right person for me is just going to be out there. And it's just about me and them connecting when we're ready. So it's a very healthy mindset. So you might, go on different dates and it's just not the right person. And in a very, very comfortable way, you move on to someone else. There's no drama. There's no, oh, he didn't like me. Oh my God, he didn't call me. Oh, he rejected me. There's none of that kind of doubt, self-doubt, and a lot of that inner critic kind of conversations in your head. It's really about allowing yourself to know that somebody would be really lucky to have you, and you're not out there to just have everybody fall in love with you. You just want that one right person for you. And knowing that you will attract them comes from doing that inner work, doing all the clearing of all these hidden patterns and childhood issues and trauma. When you do all of that work, you actually come out of that knowing that you're going to attract the right person. There's a sense of confidence, and you could probably go to a grocery and meet your partner there. And I've had so many women I've worked with, we do the work, and really in an unexpected way, they meet the right person. And I have this knack for helping women attract their soulmates. I've always been doing, and that's actually why I became a relationship coach, relationship reinvention coach, is I would find that as I worked with women and we would clear all their emotional trauma and baggage, then they started to attract better partners, better quality, healthier relationships, and they ended up finding and meeting their soulmates. So one of the things that I'm truly proud of is the ability the opportunity to have brought a lot of people together in these beautiful relationships.
Thank you so much for sharing that again. What is the prime difference between a relationship reinvention coach, a life coach, a love coach, and a therapist?
Okay, so I call myself a relationship reinvention coach because I'm reinventing your relationship with yourself, which is about self-love, teaching you how to love yourself. I'm reinventing a relationship with your partner. If you're in a relationship where there's a lot of conflict and a lot of stress, I help you actually do all the work. And I work with women primarily who have marriages where they're unhappy. And I help them actually go in again and release all the things that are causing those struggles in their marriage. And the outcome of that is their relationship changes, they're happier, and they get exactly what they want with their relationship. And finally, the other relationship that I reinvent is for someone who's single and looking for their soulmate. I help you again do the work you need to do to reinvent the type of relationships that you attract. So I work with love, I work with self-love, I work with childhood baggage and trauma, and I help you shift your relationships. So a life coach will help you with any challenge you have in your life. Maybe it might be in the career front, it might be something personal, it might be, getting your goals to be realized. A love coach might do something similar, but then you have dating coaches who really coach you to date better. I don't really work much on the dating better, because once we do the inner work and we get to a place where you're very confident about love and loving yourself and knowing who's the right type of person for you, then dating also becomes super easy. So
thank you. Every episode, we ask our guest to leave a question for the next guest. And I would like to ask you, in your experience, this is a question from our last guest. So, they asked that we should ask you, in your experience as a love alchemist, what is one common misconception people have about love and relationships? And how has that myth held people back from experiencing true fulfilling connections?
Okay, so I'm going to break that down. The first question is really about, okay, tell me. So the first question, can you repeat that again?
Yes. So the question is what is one misconception people have about love and relationships? So that's the first question. And the second question is how has that myth held people back from experiencing the true fulfilling connection?
Okay, so the myth that I believe has been holding people back is really that other people are supposed to give you love. Okay? And how has that been holding people back is we're constantly seeking from others something that we're supposed to have learned to give to ourselves. And if we had learned to give it to ourselves, I believe we would have had much healthier relationships, not only with ourselves, but with other people in our life. But it's never too late. You can always create that. You can learn to build that relationship and connection with yourself. You can learn to love yourself. And when you do, you'll see how all the other relationships in your life fall into place. And people who may not have really given you the love that you once seeked will actually be abundantly giving you this love. Like you'll almost be saying, oh wow, this is more than I even ever needed or expected. And that's really how I feel with my husband, is he gives me so much love and it really is appreciated. And I'm very grateful and thankful for the love he gives me. But I also recognize that I'm not dependent on that love.
Got it.
So I have my own self-love. And so it allows me to really appreciate him and love him even more.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for sharing that. Like, thank you for sharing your own personal journey, and thank you so much for sharing all these insights into self-love and finding the right partner and finding your soulmate, and breaking those blocks, those mental blocks and those emotional blocks. Sanaiyah, it's been such an insightful and uplifting conversation, and I know our listeners will walk away with so much wisdom from your words. I know we have covered a few topics today, but I hope that we can have you all over again to discuss more into some of these topics in a deeper dive. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning into this episode of The Girl Next Door, jahan hum baatein karte hain dil se dil tak. Whether you're working through old relationship patterns, looking for soulmate, or simply wanting to love yourself more, remember that love begins with you. Until next time, stay kind to yourself, stay open, and keep inspiring. And as I always say, keep dreaming, keep believing, and keep inspiring. This is Snehakashyapthakur and Sanaiyah Gurnamal, relationship reinvention coach, signing off from today's episode of The Girl Next Door. We will see you next time with another amazing guest on this same podcast. And remember, this podcast releases every second and fourth Saturday on YouTube and Spotify. So don't forget to follow us. Adios.
Bye.